is it?
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it? I'm the Doctor. Only joking.
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
Only joking.
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
Small off-duty Czechoslovakian traffic warden.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
Only joking.
I'm the Doctor.
So what is it?
I'm the Doctor.
Alright dudes, it's time for another episode of It's Time to Rewind. I am known as Bubbawheat. Not the Bubbawheat, not first name Bubba, last name Wheat, just Bubbawheat. This season is Red Who, where I'm covering British sci-fi like Red Dwarf and Doctor Who. And joining me 3 million years in the future via the TARDIS are my guests, Eric Grissom and Dan Johnson from the old Doctor Who show. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Thank you for having us on. This is very exciting for me. I can't speak for Dan.
Hey, I'm really
nice.
excited too.
It's nice to be on another show talking about classic Doctor Who. That's not just Dan and I talking about classic Doctor Who.
Absolutely. It's been a while since we've talked about this one, so I'm really looking forward to revisiting something from the past, which is something we don't tend to do. We watch it once and then we're done, and it immediately leaves my brain. So
although, watching this again was like I was watching it for the first time. Yeah. So
yeah, and the episode or the serial, I still have, I'm 5 episodes into Doctor, Classic Who, and I still haven't settled on what to call these stories, serials. But we're on talking about Caves of Androzani, which is the 6th serial of the 21st season of classic Doctor Who, featuring the Fifth Doctor Peter Davison, and it originally aired in 4 twice-weekly parts, starting on March 16th, 1984. But before we get into, this episode, I'd like to know what your guys' history is with Doctor Who. I listened to a couple episodes, but I didn't go back and listen to the first one. Did you, start getting into Classic Who with the podcast, or was it, were you familiar with some of it beforehand? Dan, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, Eric and I knew each other for a long time. We worked together, became good friends, but after we stopped working together, we didn't have as much of a chance to catch up. Life kind of takes over.
I would just stand outside Dan's window with the boombox playing the old Doctor Who show theme.
And I would just close the shutters angrily, pretending I didn't see him. So we decided, this was something we were both kind of interested in. What if we did a podcast? And years later, we're still doing it. But my knowledge of Doctor Who, I started with the new Who, so the 2005 reboot. So the 9th Doctor, I had grown up with Who around me. I have a brother who's 7 years older than me, so every once in a while on PBS, he'd be watching it, and I'd be like, what the heck is this? It looked fascinating, but also scary and weird at the same time. And, so I remember kind of Tom Baker episodes, the 4th Doctor, the one right before the one we're talking about today, was definitely playing in the background for me. That was my experience. What about you, Eric? I forget.
For me, I was more of a fan of Classic Who. Like Dan was saying, when we were younger, we're similar in age. Tom Baker was the sort of doctor. And you would just get random episodes or storylines that would appear on New Jersey Network, where I am as a public television station. And they were often out of order, and it was the strangest, most wonderful thing that I remember seeing, particularly the music. I think the music was the hook for me. It's probably one of the greatest theme songs for a show, Twin Peaks, not included in that. So it was just weird. And in school, there were kids that were really into Star Wars. And then once in a while, you'd find a kid into Star Trek, and they were always sort of at war. And the person that was sitting off on the side with no one to play with, they were the Doctor Who fans, and that's where I think I felt most comfortable. So I went in, like when Dan and I started the show, I had seen sort of a lot of the Baker ones, the one that we're going to talk about today, Caves of Androzani. I'd seen those, so I had sort of some understanding and a deep love for the series, but nowhere near the breadth of knowledge people that really commit and get into Who. So, a number of the stuff that we reviewed was the first time that I'd seen it, but sort of the big tentpole major stories I had seen.
Yeah, and this one was another episode recommended to me by one of those types of Doctor Who super fans, Lackey, and he told me afterwards that he believes most people consider this like one of the best classic Who episodes, and I kind of went into it mostly blind, other than knowing that this was kind of his recommendation for a good Peter Davison episode.
Yeah, often whenever they have like those rank the best top 100 classic, this is always near the top, if not the top.
For sure.
There's the Dalek one. I'm blanking on the Genesis of the Daleks is also another one that you'll hear about.
I was going to say
definitely the best Peter Davison one in my opinion.
Any one of them, blank of the Daleks blank blank, any of those, I'll get them all confused. This one was really good for Davison, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as we talk about the episode. Davison kind of changed the character, evolved the character over time. I think every actor portraying the Doctor kind of gets their legs after a little bit, and kind of the character changes, the relationship, the companions change. I like where Davison ended up in this, and this is also a very dark episode, which is not atypical, but it is very dark.
It's very 80s violence. I mean, I don't know how we're going to do this review, but I would be very interested in knowing, Bubbawheat, what you like. If this is one of the first things that you've seen, and he's running around with a celery stalk on his lapel, like that's a lot to take. That's a lot to take in for anybody. And then you have like the BDSM angle, and it's like a leather. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I will say, coming into this after Tom Baker, because I'm going through classic Who. I'm just watching one story arc for each Doctor, and I'm not watching any of the other ones. And and since this is a time loop podcast, time loop episodes kind of trump the best episodes. So Tom Baker had a time loop episode, which was not the best episode. Meglos, with the cactus.
The cactus.
Yeah. How do you remember that immediately, Eric? That's so good.
That's all I remember about.
No
that
idea.
Episode. Otherwise,
as soon as you said that,
talking cactus, and
I know exactly the one you're talking about. What a weird episode.
Yeah, so I'm kind of coming from this like after not the best Tom Baker episode into the best Peter Davison, but I will say that Peter Davison really threw me off on the first episode. And they really point out that celery stalk. Which is funny, because I didn't know that this was a regeneration episode coming into this. I didn't do like any prep beforehand, other than
sounds like us.
Just getting the recommendation.
Way to do it.
and I'm watching these on Tubi, and Tubi, like if you go to the Fifth Doctor, it has one more season after this. Because I think I don't know how it works.
He must come back.
I guess.
Yeah.
But so I didn't expect this to be the last episode.
Yeah. So they push that celery. They get the most out of the celery. In the first episode, he's talking about how it does a spectrum range for gases or something, and then later on he's trying to use it to revive Perry. It's like this is it. This is the last push to make the celery decision make sense. Like, I'm sure someone was like, no, it makes sense. It's funny and it's scientific. Yeah.
Yeah. If the air is bad, but it's still like just that whole thing. It's like, what the hell is going on with this Doctor? But I will say, like, by the end of episode 4, I was sold. Like, I really enjoyed Peter Davison as the Doctor. I feel like he was the most cheeky so far of the Doctors. He has that kind of humor.
Can I ask, so you said this is, you're doing one story per Doctor. You're going in order of the Doctors? So have you done?
Yeah.
Okay. So can we ask, what were the different stories you did? 'Cause, help us kind of calibrate what you've seen so far with Doctor Who.
I always forget.
Same here. Totally. Like I said, as soon as we watch them, it wipes from my memory. So
yeah, the first one was the Time Meddler.
Oh, great.
The second one was the Tomb of the Cybermen.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
The third one was, let's see, I think that was Carnival of Monsters. That had been my favorite so far. That's a fun one. And then Meglos, and then Caves of Androzani.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah. No, those are some really great picks. You got some good advice. Carnival of Monsters. I forgot it. That's a wild one as well. Cool.
Yeah, that was the other one that has a time loop, but that one worked out well because it has a time loop, but it's also a really fun episode or serial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Peter Davison did kind of grow on me, and I haven't been ranking the Doctors. I think I will rank. I have been ranking the episodes as we've been going along. But he was fun, and Perry. I was kind of hit and miss on Perry. I did like her, but I think especially in this one, she was mostly just kind of a damsel in distress for most of the episode.
That tends to be a recurring theme that goes on, not just with her, with a lot of the companions. This is tough for her because this is her second story. I think she was just introduced in the previous story. And then, she has a very hard time with the next Doctor. The next Doctor has a very hard time in general. The Colin Baker who you see at the very end of this one. But she's tough. And she's also playing an American, but the accent doesn't always hold up. But I like her. Like, I like the actress, but it is tough. And like a lot of her roles are very screaming and I need to be rescued kind of thing. And that's something, unfortunately, you see through a lot of the classic Who's.
Yeah, I mean, like Eric said, she was only introduced in the previous story, and there were two other companions in that story.
Yeah, you got to get some like Tom Baker, Sarah Jane stories.
The best.
There's so many great classic Who stories to watch.
Yeah, I think I said this in my last Who episode when I talked about Meglos, but I have kind of weirdly prepping for this. I jumped in with. I have seen the first two seasons of the new Who, the first reboot. So I've seen Eccleston and Tennant. And then starting this, I started going through the Sarah Jane adventures.
Okay. See, I haven't even seen those. You've gone farther down that path than I have.
Only seen a couple.
Although we have seen K9 and Company, which is a short-lived pilot for a K9 and Sarah Jane show from the 80s, I think.
Here and Gone Too Soon.
Yeah, I think there is another K9 show that I saw because I think it has a time loop episode. Because Sarah Jane Adventures has a time loop episode, which I'm plan on likely covering. After I finish with all the Red Dwarf and Doctor Who episodes I'm covering.
Right.
Then I'll, kind of pick up the stragglers. So that was kind of why I decided that, I wanted to get familiar with Sarah Jane Adventures as well. And I don't even know if I haven't even looked for K9 to see if I can even find that anywhere.
Yeah, he just starts to break after a while, and the stories will have like 2 seconds or 2 or 3 minutes really of K9, and then he's going to stay on the TARDIS, and then we're going to go have an adventure because clearly like the remote control was broke and the thing was just breaking down constantly.
Yeah, even in Meglos, he ran out of batteries. And
that happened. That happened in real life, and they were like write it into the show.
But let's go into the story of this series a bit because the Doctor and Perry arrive on Androzani Minor, I believe, because I guess it's like kind of a twin planet. Yeah. There's Androzani Minor and Androzani Major, and Minor is the one. I guess it's in the name. Minor is where they do all the mining.
Hey, yeah, that's one way to remember. Yep, they're down on Arrakis.
Yeah, and they're mining for Spectrox, which is this basically bat dropping. They're basically mining for extraterrestrial bat guano.
Right, not at all the spice melange. Complete
it's very Dune. That's one thing that comes up on our podcast, maybe too much.
Way too much.
My love of Dune. And you get to this, and there's a lot of Dune comparisons, clearly.
Absolutely.
Which I love to see.
Yeah, and there's this whole political, there's this battle, and we have androids, we've got Shara's Jack, this insane scientist who has this android army, and he's the one that controls the spice. I mean, that controls the Spectrox.
Yeah, so you're not very good. Keep doing it, yeah.
And
Jack is a great character, just like the look of him, like the leather, like it does feel like he walked off of Friedkin's Cruisin' movie. Like he's got that whole thing. He's like this. He just got off 4chan. Like he's got the edgelord, and then you have Morgus, like the billionaire crypto bro who's getting into politics. Like all the relationships and the politics of the different factions in this story are fantastic.
Yeah, the costume for Jax is great. It made me have to go back and watch the trailer for Phantom of the Paradise, the Brian De Palma musical rock opera from the late 70s. Completely feels like it was that. That and Dune together in a fever dream is, I think, the production design inspiration.
Yeah, I also think it's funny, and I noticed because you can see a little bit of his mouth, and you can tell that because I know in some more modern movies, if you have like Deadpool in a mask, if he ever had a moment where you could see kind of his face in the mask, then they would take the time to have the prosthetics in anywhere that skin is visible. But this guy, you can tell anytime he's wearing the mask, he's not wearing the prosthetics, and he doesn't wear the the weird green burn prosthetics that scare the hell out of everybody.
Yeah, the hot mud injury. He's great. It reminds me too of like if you ever saw Death Race 2000, like the old film with Dr. Frankenstein. Very similar. It's David Carradine's playing it. He's got the whole mask, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, but Jack is great, and apparently he has kind of like Darkman level of his face recreation, because he sees the Doctor and Perry on the monitors, and apparently knows enough to create doubles of them immediately.
Yeah, that part is a little unclear, even having watched it as many times as I do. Like, when that switch took place, it's a great ending to the first. Obviously, we're spoiling everything in this thing, but like the cliffhanger of the end of the first, where they're dressed in their satanic robes, and I don't know what's happening, and they're executed. But it's like, well, when did that happen? When was that switch taking place? And also, when we get to the end, it's like, where was the bat milk? Was the bat milk in the dragon creature? Because the Doctor does his totally crawly thing, and you see him far away. But where does he? They don't really show him get the bat milk.
No, I couldn't. I wasn't sure. Like,
they do. You see?
I couldn't tell. Yeah, you do see him collect it.
It's a massive bat, because I left in my notes. I found my notes from the first time we watched this, and I kind of added some more as we was going. Man, this all came back to me in a flood. But no, this bat is gigantic, and it doesn't move at all while it's being milked.
Is that the long shot where you see the very tiny Doctor? So that whole thing was. And then they kind of do like a 3/4 shot of him reaching up, and you can't really tell. It's just this big black mass above him, but it is the bat with the big wings. But yeah, because there is that poor dragon creature where he's like, "You had it worse than I." Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was like, is he milking that guy just for fun? Maybe he was milking him anyway. That's a lot going on in this one.
A lot of milking happening.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be one of the bat creatures or if that was completely separate, because I don't think they ever name
creature.
it.
Yeah, he's like a magma monster or something. I think they referred to him as.
The creature design. So this is interesting, since you've watched some reboot Who, which again doesn't have the best visual effects in the world. This classic Who, where there's a real hit and miss with what works and what doesn't. That creature design for whatever the dragon-y thing is, frickin' jacked, thighs the size of tree trunks, and wearing like what's the Mexican wrestling lucha what is that called? Lucha Libre or whatever. Yeah. With the mask and everything, he just with a cape. Like, he needed intro music and like pyrotechnics going off behind him. And not Ed McMahon. What's his name?
No, honestly, Ed McMahon.
I would think Ed McMahon,
like with a giant check. Like,
Vince McMahon.
It's Vince McMahon.
You just mix it all together.
Vince and Ed McMahon come in holding hands. And anyway, sorry, digression. But that creature's crazy and so kind of unnecessary. They already had the bat. They could have made that be the creature.
You could have the bat as the creature, right?
Or maybe it was actually supposed to be the bat, and the cape is supposed to be the wings.
Maybe.
Because I don't believe that they ever like name it.
They don't name it. They do
I
mention
think
there's
at one
other
point they say
creatures.
something about a magma creature thing or whatever, but not an official name or anything. No one even bothered to. It was probably a very friendly creature. They just needed to talk to him.
Yeah, and I read in the Wikipedia that the magma creature was intended, but there was like a writer's strike in the middle of the filming, which kind of delayed things, and so they weren't able to film that magma fight. Like that was supposed to be in the 4th episode.
Oh, interesting. Huh. Yeah, blame the writer's strike for the problems. That's cool. All right.
The look of these episodes is great. Like the lighting is great. I love the direction. There's like a lot of eye lighting where they're just lighting the eyes of the characters and stuff.
Yeah.
And the guy that plays Salatine, man, had some face acting. That guy, it's all business. If you could find someone in your life that looks at you the way he looks at Chelik, and then later, like his doppelganger that carries Jack, like that's pretty intense.
Yeah, and he does a good job once the reveal happens that Salatine has been an android this entire time, and then after that, there's a delineation between the real Salatine and android Salatine, and he does do a great job of just visually showing which one is the android and which one is the real one.
Intense eye looks. Now
it's all eyebrows.
In Chelik, Chelik meets the other one who's like, hey, this whole time the other Salatine is fake. He never he could be the fake one. There's no, he immediately buys everything the guy's saying. What if the fake one was the second one that said, oh, that other guy's fake? He doesn't ask him any questions.
Well, apparently Doctor Who never seems to do that because that situation showed up in Meglos as well, and they never had that. Because there's the moment with the two Tom Bakers, and we never get which one's the real one?
Yeah.
So we don't get that here with Salatine either. So I guess just classic Doctor Who, that was too tropey for them.
Right.
But yeah, the whole political intrigue of this was great, and all the back and forth with everybody thinking that the Doctor and Perry are agents of the other side, and we have Salatine and Chelik, the
military.
Yeah, the military on the side of Androzani Major, and we have
the
Jack,
Morgus,
Jack, the crazy scientist who has all the Spectrox, and we have Morgus, who is the guy behind the scenes who's working both angles. He's working with the military and he's working with Jack.
He's driving the price of the spice melange up by, creating all these things. He's stockpiling it. And he also reminds me of that Kids in the Hall sketch with Mark McKinney, like he's hip, he's 45. Do you know what? I know Dan will know what I'm talking about. That long ponytail that he's holding on to, and it's like he's well past his prime. But it's like, I'm Morgus. Like, he is a perfect billionaire, awful person.
You were talking,
and he's the one. Yeah, he's definitely like the farmer bro, where he is creating its own scarcity.
Yes.
He's got a Wu-Tang disc in the back. What was crazy about this guy, no one else does this except him. Turn to the camera to do an aside about what's going on. Sotto voce, like
someone
it's a play.
Else does. Yeah. Also, Jack does it. There's 2 times where it becomes like a Shakespearean drama where they tell you what they're thinking. His is the most abrupt because he literally just turns in his chair and he's like, things aren't working out, or, oh, the president must be behind this. But Jack does it later when he's looking at Dig Dug, which is his map of the thing. Right. It's like just a MAME emulator. He also does it, which is kind of interesting to because, instead of doing a voiceover, which you would have seen in 84's Dune, they do this turn to the camera thing. So yeah,
I don't know. I'm a fan of show don't tell, but that's fine. But with Jack doing it, I mean, he could have been talking to a sock puppet on his hand. It would have been fine.
Probably was. Yeah.
With Morgus, it was right to camera while someone else is in the room at the same time.
They can't hear what he's saying.
Was he actually doing it? Was that a conceit of the show? No, that's just a thing he does. He just turns and talks over his shoulder all the time.
Yeah, and it's even funnier, which again, just kind of browsing through the wiki article on this. Apparently, that was a stage direction that the actor misread.
Oh, really?
But then the showrunners decided we'll just keep it.
It's so good. Like, he really just needed a mustache to twirl, and it would have been perfect. Yeah. It was great.
Yeah, and then there's also one other group. We have Stotts, which is the leader of the this group of the actual gun runners, who again is everybody's working with Morgus. Like, Morgus is just like him fighting everybody against himself, because he's got the military fighting with Jack, and he's running, like, he's ordering the military to take out Jack, but then he's also supplying guns to Jack to fight the military. So
he's on all sides, and he's very like 1980s action hero, mega force. Like, his whole shtick is fantastic. And there's a lot of tension, I think, between Stetz and the Doctor at one point. Like, there's definitely some stuff. There's tension between a lot of the guys in this, but I noticed that one.
I think one of the best scenes, the best little funny moments, is whenever the first time that Morgus was talking to the president, when they're when the show is explaining what Spectrox is. And, he's like, just give him like 30 centiliters of Spectrox, that's more than anybody. And apparently Jack has like kilos and kilos of this stuff stashed away. So it's like the diamond industry. He's creating the scarcity.
Absolutely,
in order to drive
he's got the president hooked on it. Well, that's when they bring it out later, it looks like it's like bags of cocaine, like the giant Ziploc bags. Of,
very Miami Vice.
Powder,
I don't know why the guy came in with a white blazer that was rolled up to his sleeves and had the.
Oh, we got to talk about all the clothes though. The magic
that's true.
members only.
I was kidding about that part.
That one group has, and then so there's they're color coded, so you know who's in charge. The leader Chelik, he's got like the teal, right? And everyone else has some other color.
I actually really kind of dug the costumes in this one. Sometimes they're just so ridiculous, especially in the 80s series. But those uniforms looked good. They actually looked like kind of uniforms. You get away with it. They were a windbreaker material, it looked like, but that's fine. Whatever. That was cool. The president and Morgus both have like big puffy bits that come across their chest. Like, it looked like it had a point of view to it, and they looked distinct. And not just
they all
completely.
shopped at different stores.
I also love, like, whenever they're introducing, he's like, President, old are you again? He's like, 83. Oh, you don't look a day over 50. And he's, and like, from the modern point of view, it's like, no, he looks about 70.
That's true. It's not hard living.
Yeah, the age is interesting too, just outside of the show. Like, looking at the actor that played Chelik, I'm like, how old is this guy? He looks older. He's older than me, but in reality, he's probably 35. Like, how old am I getting at this point?
Yeah, and weirdly, like, the weird dichotomy, because Chelik is the commander of the military, but he seems like kind of the bumbling fool, and Salatine is like the his competent second in command.
Right. I wonder how much of that was the android itself, because we don't know that at first. Like, oh, Selleck, you're anticipating my every move, or whatever he says, something like that. Was it like totally different? Like, before Selleck was like, he's fine, right? But then this guy comes in and he's like, oh wow, you're getting a raise and you're getting promotion. And, no.
It's kind of interesting though when you look at like Chelik and Jack, and they both have their own Salatines, that serve them. So it's sort of balanced out that way. Because when the real Salatine comes, he's still like the strategy person.
Yeah,
he's the one telling Chelik like, oh,
this is what we need to do,
and then he'll be listening and everything. So.
And we'll feed Jack in misinformation, even though they don't realize that Jack immediately knows that the real Salatine is back, because the android Salatine has the infravision. So it's like the real android Salatine looks over at the wall, and then we get this, the predator vision where he sees Perry and the real Salatine in the other room, and he immediately tells Jack. And so it's like they think that it's this big plan, but then the audience is like, no, Jack knows immediately what's going on.
Yeah, they kept trying to do the double crosses that would just never work over and over again. But yeah. The thing that I found the most kind of upsetting in this episode, which is the central theme of like Jack needing to be around beauty, and that Perry is this thing that will take him out of the hell that he's in of being, disfigured. He says how he used to be so comely, but now he can't even look at himself anymore.
Can't look or touch himself.
Himself.
Poor guy. He's going through some stuff. He goes in hard on Perry, and he you've never seen anything like it. But I think maybe he has feelings for
apparently he wants to touch himself again.
But he's trying to deal with that internally.
The androids were tired of doing all that for him. But just like the face caresses. There's a lot of handwork going on here.
It's
in
creepy.
terms of camera following. Before we even really get a sense of who Jack is, we just see like this leather man. You just watch his hands touching controls and caressing the monitor screen. We see Perry. Then when he finally has her, he's just constantly touching her. It is really upsetting.
Handsy. And you're right. Yeah. The camera lingers and follows his hand as it moves down her body to like adjust something. He's a very creepy guy.
Yeah,
he's definitely like incel leader of the
the incel leader.
But it also like I feel like they're bending over. I feel like they're bending over backwards to make it seem like he's not interested in her sexually. That he doesn't want to sexually assault Perry.
Oh, it's purely aesthetic.
Yeah, he just wants to have her.
I guess he loves the beauty, but I don't know. It's kind of on the borderline.
Either that, or he wants to have like a relationship with her, and he wants to, Stockholm syndrome Perry before he wants the beauty and the beast Perry.
That's an excellent point, because it happens. Like even by the end, like when the doctor arrives and he's going to save Perry, he's going to go milk the bat. He's like helps him out, right? And he gives him the oxygen, and you're like, oh, he's not so bad. Meanwhile, like you just watched 3 episodes of some of the worst behavior with the groping hands and the so you do feel that. You're like, oh yeah, maybe he's just misunderstood.
Well, the groping hands and also the wanton murder, like that's another thing.
Murder. It
is not a very typical thing for Doctor Who, for a lot of gunplay. Laser weapons, whatever, blowing up the planet, sure, but like straight up machine guns doesn't typically happen. This story, however, people are murdering each other with a smile. It's crazy.
This story is really interesting too, because it breaks a lot of like Doctor Who molds. There's no real likable good characters. Like even the Salatine that's been replaced by an android is awful. Like once they get him out, he's like, grabbing Perry. The Doctor the whole time is sort of without agency. He's just sort of never in control. Like, who are the good characters? Nobody.
Yeah.
The President's kind of
even Stotts kills his second. Kills.
Yes.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Mows them down.
His 2 guys.
Every
walks
character's
out.
Awful.
Yeah, that kind of blew my mind, really, because it's like, you see Stotts and his second in command, and they seem like they are like best buds, and then his second in command and the other guys, they're like, no, we're just gonna go back to Major, and which I kind of, every time they said that, I forgot that it's Androzani Minor and Androzani Major, and every time they say like major, yeah, I'm like, oh, they're gonna go to the major, like
right, the corporal of
it, like Shelik is the major or something, yeah.
But every time they actually say that, no, every time they say they're going back to Major, they're going back to the other planet.
Right. They do have that battle before then, right, where I feel like the what's his name, Kepler, the guy under Stotts, where he sort of tries to turn on him, and then he makes him eat that pill, right. And he's like, fight it! And it's like the tooth moment, but he doesn't, but it's like a fake poison pill, and there's a lot of characters, a lot of male characters, and there's a lot going on between them, and it's all boiling into anger and violence.
Well, that's right, though. Now that you mention it, there's only 2 female characters in this. One is a damsel in distress. The other is the president's assistant, who is a competent assistant, but just
it's
does
Morgus'
what the
assistant. I think.
Yeah, and she's in it for herself.
That's what I mean. I'm sorry, you're right. The Morgus' assistant, who ends up,
turning on him, right? She's the thing that he didn't see. Where I did like that element of him not even understanding. Maybe Jack just flipped the Doctor to androids because that's what Jack does. He immediately is so paranoid that he thinks it's the president, and like the whole time it's actually her. And that was interesting because you don't get a lot of time with her, but I did like the turn when she's talking to him on the video and she's like, by the way, it's over. I'm now in control. That was
yeah. I like that.
I would qualify her as a good character.
Yeah, that was a great reveal too, because she's like, yeah, an informant told the parliament. They have a name for it, which I don't remember, and I can't.
Presidium.
It was like the
Presidium. Yeah.
Yeah.
So an informant told the Presidium about all of your double dealings, and he's like, but how? Nobody knows. And she's like, the informant was me. I did it. And now I have control of all of your holdings, including the millions of offshore bank accounts.
It'd be great if that scene went on for like an hour where he just wasn't getting it. She's like, it's me. Here is a video of me turning you in. Like, yeah. Who are you working for? Who could it have been? It was Jack.
Yeah, but this was just really great. I mean, I will say that it was a little hard to follow in places because there is so much double dealing and double crossing and moving parts, and everybody's working against each other, but like Morgus is kind of controlling it, and then Jack also, he like knows everything that's going on, and so he's got he's got plans within plans and like contingency plans and all this other stuff, and the working with the gun runners and promising them like 8 kilos and then leaving them with 2 and promising more whenever they come back next time. And he's got this stockpile and all this in the Presidium and the president and Morgus killing the president, which it was a hilarious scene where he's like,
and how is he going to cover that up? He's like, we're going to execute the lift operator.
Exactly. It was a lift issue. It could have happened to him.
But you're right. There's a lot of stuff going on. So not only is he running guns against himself to drive up the price of the spice, but there's also that bit where he's like closing plants in the West and making people unemployed and then sending them out on work release to the East where he has another factory and then getting free labor. Like there's all of this stuff going on at once, but it works. I feel like the whole thing works. And I love seeing like characters like, what's his face? Stotts, when you see his dealings with Jack, and clearly Jack is in charge. And then as he relays that to the president, he spins it as if like, oh yeah, I got him to do 8. He was eating out of my hand. And like, you realize everyone's just lying to each other and there are no real alliances.
Yep. One of the things I found confusing in Classic Who as well, that happens all the time like this, especially when we're talking about like 6-parters or like go even longer, they do try to pack a whole lot of extra stuff into it. So there's a lot of extra plot points, B plots, C plots, but there's just a lot of running back and forth to the same locations over and over again. So you see the same like hallway, you're seeing the same. In this one, they're always fighting in a corridor or fighting in the cave of Androzani. It just it gets really confusing after a while. Like, where are we? Why are we stuck in? I don't know. I like them when they have a lot more varied sort of terrain. This one actually probably isn't the worst offender in that way. You got a lot of outdoor scenes as well, but yeah, just a lot of claustrophobia.
Yeah, and I think that wraps up the episode. For the most part, we could probably talk a bit more, but
the most important thing I want to get from your point of view, though, you mentioned at the top that this you didn't realize it was a regeneration episode.
Oh,
so, yeah. So this one, I'd love to hear what you think about like seeing a regeneration, Davison turning into Colin Baker, the whole hallucination maybe he's having of his previous companions. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen one other regeneration up to this point, from Eccleston to Tennant, and I honestly don't really remember that clearly because it's been a couple years, and so and again, I did kind of skim the wiki on the behind the scenes stuff, so I did read that this was like this was them trying something different because even the character himself is like, this feels different. And then we get all this, Daniel plan, Lisa needs braces.
Yeah,
Daniel plan.
That's great. That's exactly. Yeah, he does say this feels different this time. The only thing that is different is seeing this flashbacks of all.
No,
the different...
I disagree with that.
What else happened?
Well, the Legopolis one, you do get the flashbacks of the people, but in this one they play it like I've never seen before, where it's almost like it's not going to happen, and the voices are pleading with him, you have to regenerate, and the master's like, don't do it. Almost like it's like a thing that he has to overcome, or like it's almost like he's not going to regenerate.
Interesting.
And then all of the companions come back to give him like I don't know if we've ever seen that type of thing before.
Right. Where he's actually making a conscious choice. I guess, that,
because when
now
Tom
that you say it,
Baker
it makes
goes,
sense.
He sees a bunch of folks again, the classic, remember these people? But this is, I thought that it was a weird choice that he may not come back. And why? Because he was poisoned? There's so much stuff when you get into Classic Who with the number of regenerations and the rule, and they've done away with that in Modern Who, but that was a thing at the time. But he's still within it. It's weird.
Yeah, and again, like it didn't, it wasn't something watching this serial kind of in isolation. But again, like another note was that all of those little flashes were recorded for this episode, and like several of the companions were already, I guess, contracted to come back the next season, so those were easy to get. But then some of the older ones they had to bring back, and the wiki also mentioned that they had to pay royalties for one of the characters, which was
really? Yeah, and this was already gone. So any of the characters that were previously in this season, they were fine. But anyone that had already gone, they had to pay out extra. But it's also great. Like, you don't have this connection that we do, Bubba. But like, this doctor's last word is Adric, which just makes me cry laughing. It's just so sad that that's the last thing he gets to say as the doctor until the special. But it's really crazy. But then we get the regeneration into Colin Baker, who is immediately
unlikable.
He's immediately he's this doctor almost the whole way through. So if you had a particular feeling about this doctor from the first time you see him, that's what you're going to get.
Colin Baker is awesome. He's like a great actor. He's a great person. His Big Finish stories are wonderful. His run on Doctor Who is not good. But all that said, this is so unappealing. Like, he comes out immediately and you're annoyed. At least I was completely annoyed by it. Were you expecting someone else? Like, what is happening? This is cancel the show at that point.
In a way,
so
I feel
irritated.
Like he was trying to call back more of a Hartnell Doctor, because Hartnell's Doctor was very, especially at the very beginning, very irascible, very curmudgeonly, also kind of, in a way, was condescending to his companions and everyone else around him. And that changed over time. He became a very loving and lovable sort of character. And it feels like maybe they were just trying to reset the character a little bit and go back in that direction. But it just comes across as smarmy and smug to me in a way that was not appealing.
Not a good intro.
And I don't think it's his fault necessarily. I think it's the direction of the show and the director.
No, yeah, he's amazing. But that's like, this is definitely one of the worst regenerations, his part of it. And then it gets worse in the next one for the beginning of Twin Dilemma.
It doesn't get all of it.
He goes very violent against Perry, but you
that's
that.
right.
Oof. It's weird. Great episode.
And his the one that I'm going to be covering for Colin Baker is the Revelation of the Daleks.
I can't remember that one.
The blank of the Daleks. It's always
that's the generator.
Great.
And I think that's. That'll be, I've covered one Cybermen episode, and this will be the first Dalek episode that I'm covering in Classic Who.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I just looked it up too. So Perry is still with him, so you get that.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
You get to see her again. Interesting.
Oh yeah,
I don't remember much about that.
Oh no. Oh, this one.
It's not the one with the people on the roller skates, right?
It's the one that has the 1950s DJ. The big guy. Remember that guy? Yeah, I'm looking at the gifs that I made from this one. And Perry's dressed up like she's Violet Beauregard, which is really fun. So, you're going to have a good time.
You'll have fun with that.
Yeah, that should be interesting. And then, I'm not really ranking the doctors. I don't think, I did say that I grew to like Davison, over the course of the episodes. He was a lot of fun. I liked his flippant nature, and especially in all the times of peril, that he is always just like kind of cracking jokes whenever he's in mortal peril, and I think that's kind of fun. And meanwhile, Perry's like, going back to the execution, she's just like, just get on with it.
Yeah.
But as far as the episodes, I have been ranking these classic episodes, and it's tough because I really like Carnival of Monsters, which was my number one of the previous four. And it's so much different than this one, because this one is so serious, but it's well made. But the Carnival of Monsters was so much fun and silly and enjoyable, and this was enjoyable in a different way. But I think I will put this one at the top, and then the rest will kind of stay in the same order as they were the last time. Carnival of Monsters number 2, Time Meddler number 3, Meglos at number 4, and Tomb of the Cybermen down at the bottom. And then do you have any parting words, or this? I'll also give you an opportunity where you can talk about your podcast and any social media that you'd like to promote. Here's your chance.
Oh, good. Well, first off, I will say thank you for having us on. I don't have anything else for this particular show. If you like the way Dan and I talk about the Old Doctor Who Show, you can find us on theolddoctorwhoshow.com, or we have a YouTube channel which has all the audio podcasts where we covered Classic Who, as well as video podcasts where we're discussing New Who. So we reviewed all the holiday specials this past holiday, as well as the first season of the reboot from Disney Plus. And also, if you're interested in me, I write graphic novels. I have a graphic novel out in stores right now. It's called The Wolf and the Well. You can find it wherever fine books are sold, and you can find me at ericgrissom.com.
Yeah, I got nothing else to promote. Check out the YouTube channel. Check out Eric's books, many books. That's so true. Once you find them, go and get your local bookseller to order more for you. But yeah, thank you so much for this. This is awesome. Really good time remembering what a crazy story this is.
It was good to watch it again. I'm always like, that's the problem. If I could, I would make Dan review all the classic Who's again, because there's so many. I love so many of them. We can't go back. So I have to wait to be invited on other people's podcasts to talk about them. So absolutely. I'll take it.
All right. And as always, I am Bubbawheat, and you can find me on all social media where I'm at Bubbawheat. Currently, I'm most active on Threads these days, but I still have all the other ones. So if you find me and shoot me a message, I will most likely get the notification. And as long as you're saying something nice, I will reply. And we also have a Facebook group. It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group, and you can join that to discuss episodes as they come out. And also, discussion is welcome on all other time loops in media, anything new that's coming out, anything old. I know there was a trailer for, I think, Mickey 17, which is kind of a time loop, not really, but it's close enough. I think that I'm interested in potentially coming that in a future season. It's definitely being added to my list. And until next time, smoke me a kipper. I'll regenerate for before breakfast next week.